Hi green lovers! Winter is coming, and where I live in Northern California, Zone 9B, I can expect my first cold snap anywhere from the middle of November onward. And today is November 20th, and I have a few things that I need to take care of before that happens. So in this video, I'm going to tell you the top 5 most important things that I do before my first cold snap. Coming right up. Now the first thing that I do is harvest the last of my summer veggies. So this here is a beautiful pepper plant, and you can see the gorgeous Buena Malata purple peppers. I've made a few videos on this beautiful plant, but as you can see, it's loaded in peppers, and what happens is on that first frost date, these can get frozen, and when peppers get frozen, they get mushy. So I don't want that to happen, so I'm going to harvest all of them. Look how pretty that is. Now just from this one small plant, I have got about 20 peppers. That is a very productive little pepper plant. Now as I'm harvesting these, I can smell the scent of the sweet alyssum, which smells like honey. It's lovely. It's one of those plants that comes into full bloom around about this time of year. I don't know whether you can quite see it, but the bees absolutely go nuts for this thing. So while all the rest of your flowers are starting to die away during this time of year, the sweet alyssum comes back in full force. Yet another favorite in my garden. Well, that's quite the little pepper haul for an end-of-season harvest. And while I was about it, I found some eggplants remaining on the tree, and I plucked those too. I'm happy with that. I'm also going to harvest some greens. Over here, I've got longevity spinach, also known as Gynora procumbens, and this thing won't survive outside in the winter. This will survive indoors with minimal care. Now it won't grow and thrive indoors, but come spring I'll bring it outside and it will start to grow again. This is an extremely productive green if you want something that is hardy through the hot summer months. This is one for you. It's called longevity spinach for a reason. It has incredible health benefits. I highly recommend growing this plant, and I harvest something like this every 3 weeks or so, and it just comes back and comes back and comes back. So great alternative to spinach. It's mild tasting, it's a hearty kind of green, and if you're sauteing it, I promise you won't be able to tell the difference between this and spinach. Now I've got some sweet potatoes growing in these totes, and I've also got some potato plants growing here. I am not going to harvest these. I am actually going to wait until my actual first frost date, but I am going to harvest some sweet potato greens. Did you know that sweet potato greens are extremely nutritious and delicious too? So I throw these in my smoothies. I use them in place of spinach, just like I do with longevity spinach, and they are extremely good for you and so yummy. So I'm going to go ahead and harvest a few more of those. The next thing you need to do is harvest any herbs you've got growing, not just for the leaves, but also for growing new plants that you can grow indoors all winter long. My favorite to do this with is Genovese basil, because this is an annual, and I can't really overwinter this plant. It has gone to flower, it has gone to seed, and even if this were growing in a pot, if I were to take it indoors, it wouldn't survive the winter. I've tried many, many times. However, what I have been very successful in doing is taking cuttings from this. So what you want to do is choose a stem that's about maybe 6 inches or so long. You want to trim off any excess leaves because you want this little cutting to focus all its energy on growing roots. You particularly do not want any flower spikes growing, so snip those off if they're there. You want to make sure that you've got at least one of these leaf nodes under water when you put it in a cup of water. That's all it needs, is a cup of water in about 2 weeks you will have a nice root system. Actually, I've got some that I want to show you. Give me a second. So this has been growing in this cup for a couple of weeks. And you can see how nice and strong that root system is. Now all I would do is put this in some indoor potting soil in a little pot on a sunny windowsill. That's all it needs. Even better if you've got grow lights. This will grow beautifully under grow lights, but a warm sunny windowsill should be able to do the job as well. And this will grow beautifully all winter long. If you're getting any value out of this video so far, I would really appreciate it if you hit that like button. It really helps this video get out to a broader audience. Now let's go to task number 3. The next thing that you need to do is protect any tender young fruit trees that you have, especially if they're frost sensitive. So over here I've got a Maya lemon plant. It is a very young plant and it needs to be protected even from those cold snap days, though I might not have very many, because even though the plant may not die, it will set it back considerably next year when it's trying to grow again. So I like to keep it warm, and mainly the roots need to be protected. Since I live in Northern California and I don't have that many cold snap nights, what I typically do with these is I just put something on top of it on the days that I'm expecting the weather to be fairly cold. So as an example, I have this leaf collection bin and it fits nicely. It fits perfectly over this citrus tree. So that's what I will do. And I do like it to get some sunshine during the day, so I will come outside when it is warm and I will remove the cover from it and I will put it back again when the nights get cold. Now, if I'm going to be away for many days, or if it is going to be frosty for many days in a row and I want it to be permanently covered, I do have another option right here. So this, I've got a citrus tree inside this, and all I've done is I've put some stakes and I have covered it with row cover. Now, you want something that lets light through, as this will. So that's what you need to do, is protect it with something transparent. Even a big plastic bag should do the job. Make a few holes here and there in it to let a little bit of air in, but not too much of the cold, and that should be good enough. Now, the advice that I'm giving you is only for the milder winters. If you've got really severely cold winters, you should be taking your plants indoors if they are young and won't be able to survive the cold temps outside. So keep that in mind. This is for your milder winters. Now, the other thing that you also need to do is make sure that you mulch the base of the plant really, really well. So I go up at least about 6 inches or so, and I use leaves. I use just fall leaves that I collect every year, and I use it to mulch my garden both in summer as well as in winter. And speaking about mulch, that's the 4th thing that you need to do, is any space that is not covered with either cover crops or a plastic sheet. Sometimes people use that to cover them during winter. You do need to cover it. If you don't cover it, nature will grow her own cover crops, which are weeds, and you want to avoid those as much as possible. The other reason you want to mulch very heavily during the winter is because it gives a layer of protection over the top of the bed, and what that does is it really helps the life inside continue to thrive through the winter months. The composting worms especially, which tend to like to be on the surface, do really, really enjoy that layer of protection. So keep your worms warm, give them a layer of mulch, and keep those weeds away. The other advantage is that the mulch will also decompose and add organic matter to your soil. So no reason not to mulch that I can think of. So let's go ahead and mulch these. Oh, by the way, I do have some potato plants that are growing here. And even though they will survive some dips in temperature below zero, eventually the plants will start to die off. They will come back again, in spring, but I want to try and see whether I can get these to survive through winter. I'm going to do that with my asparagus bed as well, because those tend to shoot up those little spears, and if I have a cold snap, they all die. So I'm going to take some precautions and cover these beds, particularly with a thick layer of mulch. So I went ahead and mulched the bed, and while I was about it, I actually threw this quick hoop tunnel over this bed because that will give the potatoes the additional protection that they need to survive through the winter. If you want to see a video on how I put together this easy hoop tunnel, I will put a link to the video in the description. So yeah, these are really easy to put together, and if you live in a mild winter like I do, this can actually be used to house a lot of different kinds of plants, including some of my young seedlings that I am starting to grow. Right here, I've got some artichokes that are growing that will need a little bit of protection, so I will move them into the hoop tunnel as well. And the last, and probably one of the most painful things for me that I do in preparation for winter, is to prepare my plants that I am going to overwinter. And this is mostly pepper plants and eggplants. I just hate doing this because it feels so atrocious to do something like this to a plant, and I'll show you exactly why. So I'm sitting here with my beautiful single seed challenge plants, my Chinese 5-color pepper. And for those of you that do not know about the single seed challenge, it is about growing a plant from a single tiny seed into this gorgeousness and taking it through its entire life cycle, all the way to when it actually produces seeds of its own. And in the case of this particular plant, I've given away so many seeds, so its life has been extended through the generations, and it is so exciting. And I do want to keep this plant alive for at least 1 or 2 more seasons if I can. So I'm going to overwinter this pepper. Now, the way pepper plants grow is they typically, branch off Y-shaped branches. So here's the next, it's branched off into a Y, and so on and so forth. What you're going to do is you're going to cut it down almost to the lowest Y. And you can see this plant is at least about 2 or 3 feet tall, so it's going to be pretty drastic on this plant, but it's got to be done. So here we go. Let's see. I'm going to start cutting from here. You want to leave at least, a couple of nodes. So I've got 1, 2 nodes. I'm going to cut it right here. And I'm going to keep doing this. There's 1 node, 2 nodes, maybe 3 nodes. Cut it right here. I'm going to go ahead and complete this, and I'll show you what it looks like. So this is kind of what it looks like when I'm all done with it. Now I will pinch off any flowers. You do not want them to try and put any energy into anything other than keeping those roots alive. So I'm going to pinch off any leaves, any kind of new growth that I'm seeing, and I'm going to just leave the stems. I can even go further down, but it breaks my heart to go any further than this. And I am going to actually overwinter this outside. So all I'm going to be doing is I'm going to pull this plant, this pot that is buried. It's a bottomless pot. I've buried it in the soil. I'm going to pull it up. I will trim off some of the roots. I will plop it in another pot just like this, and I'm going to put it in my hoop tunnel to overwinter. Now, if you're going to be bringing your plants indoors, it is a little bit more of a procedure because you've got to have sterile soil. So you're going to have to take this out, trim off the root balls, put it in a 1-gallon pot of sterile soil mix, and then bring it indoors and just keep it somewhere where it gets maybe just a little bit of filtered light. You want to water it maybe about once a week, and that too only if the soil is feeling dry. So all you're doing is trying to keep it alive. If you see a lot of leaves growing, if I'm doing an indoor overwintering, I just pinch those off. I do not want any energy at all to be put into growing the plant. I want everything to stay with keeping the root alive. All of that energy needs to go downward, not upward. And then when it starts to warm up in spring and you don't have any more freezing nights, you can take your plant out. You can start giving it some regular fertilizer, maybe once every couple of weeks or so. Hi, kitty. That's Danny the garden cat. And it will start to grow again, and it will produce much earlier than the other pepper plants that you started from seed. So that is one of the biggest advantages of overwintering peppers, is they will produce much, much earlier for you. And the harvests tend to be bigger the second and third year around as well. I've not gone any further than that, but I can tell you that the second year and third year have much better harvests than the first year. So yeah, go ahead and overwinter your peppers. I will do the same thing with some of my eggplants, cut them down, and my eggplants do quite well outside, even without any protection in my mild Northern California winters. So that is how I'm going to overwinter these plants. I hope you enjoyed this video, folks, and until next time, live green and love your greens.